The altcoin markets are approaching the big bull cycle. It's clear. We are not in a 4-year cycle anymore. We are at the start of the big bull run on altcoins. And your question is, which altcoins are going to do great? And then that's why in this video, we'll discuss altcoins that I think are going to give a massive return in 2025. And I'll explain why this cycle is going to be longer. Let's get started. Before we continue, I'd like to ask you for a small favor, which is to subscribe to this YouTube channel, but also to follow me on Instagram. Today we talk about altcoins. We also have an altcoin portfolio. We're trading it actively. If you would like to get clear updates real time, that means that you need to go to Instagram because that's where I'm providing them. You can find the link in the description beneath. And that's also bringing me to the question, if there is an altcoin that I need to discuss and I'm not discussing that, let it know in the comments beneath. I read them, and that's where I can get more info and intel on the markets. Now, the altcoin markets are not great. The altcoin markets, if we compare it to 4 years ago, were actually at the peak, and right now they are still at the bottom because most of them are not providing an actual return, which is a little bit sad. We wanted to get a positive return out of it, but given the fact that most listings from recently have been doing great, it shows that there's a lot of upwards potential going to come, but most of them are not too good at this point in time. And one of them is Optimism, which is basically doing nothing and is currently still making new lows. It's still accumulating at those range lows, which is not great. But you might question that, is it going to get back at any point in time? It will break through the 20-week MA, and then we're going to get into more momentum. And that can be said about Wormhole, which is still doing nothing, but it has recently been providing a return of 80%. And as you can see on the chart, it's just this small bump upwards, which means that there's still a lot to come. And that brings me to the most important part, which is looking at the bigger picture of the altcoin markets. And the bigger picture is still that we are uptrending, and the bigger picture is still that there's a lot of momentum to come, because the others versus Bitcoin chart has a strong comparison to where we are at in the previous cycle compared to right now. It is providing some very clear pictures, and it shows that we are still in the depressive phase for almost all of the altcoins, and there is still not much of retail interest. And the prime reason for the fact that there's not much interest is that almost all people are going to be wrong on the thesis of the markets. Almost everyone expects the cycle to peak in the coming few weeks, while the markets haven't really moved upwards yet. We don't have a new all-time high for ETH. We don't have any strength on the altcoins. It is still yet to happen. And the fact for that is that I keep on repeating it, but I'm going to use this chart from TechDev again, which is a comparison between the business cycle and the strength of Bitcoin. And as you can see in the chart, there is a very long green period right now, which is the period that we have been going up with Bitcoin, but still the business cycle wasn't doing well, which means that the fact that we do have new all-time highs right now is primarily due to the fact that the ETF has come in, and the ETF has resulted into an uptick of the price of Bitcoin to double to where it is right now. But if we really look at the strength of the business cycle, and if we look at the historical price action of Bitcoin as well, then we would have been having no all-time high at this point. But given that we are making new all-time highs, it's going to trick a lot of people saying that we are peaking in the coming period. Well, actually, we are just about to wake up, because if you again look at the chart, you can see that the bottom of the green candles, which is the bearish period of the business cycle, was created just before the entire altcoin run started in this exact same period. So as you can see, those green candles bottomed out in Q4 of 2019, Q1 of 2020. And that was also the period where the actual run on Bitcoin started to happen. that was also the period where the altcoins started to do well. And the same can be said about 2016. The peak of the green candles was in Q1, Q2 of 2016. This time, the bearish business cycle just simply took more time to change and to change the sentiment. And that's what we start to see in our second chart, which is also super important to look at, which is the fact that the Chinese currency versus the dollar and ETH versus Bitcoin are super correlated, because a strong Chinese renminbi shows a stronger business cycle. And that's why it starts to change at this point. And the first thing that you are seeing in changes is that ETH outperforms Bitcoin. And at this point in time, we had a bottom on the Chinese renminbi taking place in April of this year. That was also the bottom on ETH versus Bitcoin. And the same can we see in 2019. The same can we see in December 2016, that during the period of the bottom of ETH versus Bitcoin was also the bottom of the Chinese renminbi. So if we look at these charts, then it's very likely that we're going to have a lot more strength going to come, especially since the fact that the Fed has started to cut rates and they need to improve the market circumstances in terms of the economy because of the labor market data that is getting out of hand. And that's a more important topic than inflation. And that's where a lot of people are pushed into risk-on assets to generate a return out of that instead of just saving their money on a bank account. And that's why I think that we are at the start of the bull cycle. And that's why I think you can still scoop up some interesting ones that are likely going to do well in the coming period. We recently hosted our very first crypto masterclass with OKX, and it was a huge success. We had over 100 people joining us in Amsterdam for me to talk 1 hour about crypto and trading, an AMA, and we had drinks and a chat at the end of the night. We had people driving in from Germany and we had people flying in from the UK. And to be honest, this was something that I really wanted to do for years. And I think that we're going to be doing more of those events in the future. And if you want to be part of those events and want to know it the first, make sure to sign up through OKX in the link in the description beneath. And then you'll be the first to receive updates on all of the upcoming events. Now, we just discussed the fact that we are at the start of a bull cycle. So now let's discuss the altcoins that are likely going to do a 10x. And I've got some smaller ones, I've got some bigger ones. And the first one that I wanted to discuss is technically Chainlink. Chainlink, at this point in time, you might say it's expensive, but it's actually not expensive, because if we look at the Bitcoin valuation, it is still swimming around the all-time lows, or actually the cycle lows. And if we start calculating it, the peak is 17,000 sats and it's currently at 1,800, which means that there's still a 10x in terms of Bitcoin valuation going to come there. And if we start looking at the USDT valuation, then it's currently at $20 and it's just making higher lows and higher highs, through which there is more of a upwards pattern starting here, and the actual real run is still there to happen. And overall, if we look at the price impact, if you look at the impact of the ETF on ETH and the price of ETH, we saw that ETH was outperforming Bitcoin by 144% in 2 months. And if in that period of time ETH outperforms Bitcoin and Bitcoin goes up against the dollar, you increase the upwards return. So even though Chainlink doesn't need to do a 10x against Bitcoin, chances are that it doesn't really happen at all. But if Chainlink against Bitcoin is making a 2x and Chainlink against USDT then also does a 2x, but if Bitcoin against USD goes up, the price of Chainlink against USDT is going to go up even more. So I think that this is one that in the next 6 months is going to yield a massive return. And I think that one of the new ones, which is Sai, which has shown that in 2023, if there is an actual run, this one ran from 10 cents in October all the way towards $1.13 in March in 5 months. I think that this is another one that goes could do the exact same, in the sense that it partnered up with PayPal and it keeps on expanding the ecosystem. But if we look at Sai versus Bitcoin, it's the same picture that we see here, which is that it's still accumulating at the lows and therefore providing a lot of potential upwards opportunity here. That if it goes towards those highs, it is an 8x versus Bitcoin. And if we apply the principle that we just discussed, then even a double against Bitcoin for Sai and Bitcoin that goes up to 150K might be a 3 to 4x already. So I think that if we look at the Bitcoin valuations in general, most of the Bitcoin valuations have barely waken up and therefore provide a lot of opportunity. The third one that I have here is Peak, which is currently at 10 cents. The all-time high here is at 80 cents. Also in the same window in 2024, it ran from 20 cents to 80 cents, came all the way back down towards 5 and had its first run. I think that AI and robotics are going to be crucial. That's why you need to bet on the infra players, and Peak is such an infra player. It's currently retesting, but it is breaking the 20-week MA, and I think that the valuation of 150 million is substantially low for the layer 1. So I think that this is a smaller cap that is likely going to do well. And finally, I've been going over it multiple times, but Wormhole is on the edge of having a big breakout. And if we look at Wormhole versus Bitcoin, we need to zoom in to actually see the current valuation against Bitcoin, but it's clearly starting up a new uptrend. And even if we look at the recent highs, it's a 7x. And if we look at the all-time highs, it's a 15x from here. So people claiming that they can't get a big return with altcoins are foolish. It is going to happen. You can see that the returns are about to take place, that the uptrend is starting. And I think these four are a nice overall look on the markets, where some of them are going to provide a massive return in the next few months and some will take a little bit more. But overall, the view on the altcoin markets is that these projects are likely going to bring that big return that you want, as long as you delete the 4-year cycle out of your system. First and foremost, these altcoins are not financial advice, but we do know that once the markets are changing, the returns are going to be big. And during this period, people are underestimating the potential upside, just as during bull markets, they are overestimating the potential correction that is going to happen. So all of these coins are currently swimming at the lows, and therefore I've shown you arguments today on why I think that these altcoins are going to run and why I think that these altcoins will do well. Make sure to subscribe and I'll see you again on the next one. Ciao.